A millennial looks around their apartment. It is not a disaster. Not exactly. There is no dramatic mess, no obvious crisis, just a quiet accumulation of things. A stack of mail on the counter, a few products in the bathroom that are almost empty but not quite, cords near the desk, laundry that has been clean for 3 days but never fully put away, a closet full of clothes and somehow nothing that feels easy to wear, a drawer that opens halfway before getting stuck on something inside it. They stand there for a second, looking at all of it, and the feeling is not anger, it is fatigue, because every object seems to ask something: move me, clean me, sort me, use me, decide whether I still belong here. And then, later, they watch a video of a quiet room, clear surfaces, neutral colors, one lamp, one plant, a shelf with just enough on it, nothing crowded, nothing demanding attention, and something in their nervous system exhales. Millennials have developed a reputation for loving minimalism, clean lines, neutral apartments, capsule wardrobes, simple furniture, fewer things. A generation drawn to decluttering, organizing, simplifying, and making everything feel a little quieter. From the outside, the explanation feels simple. It is just an aesthetic, a Pinterest board, an Instagram trend, a performance of taste, white walls, beige couches, ceramic mugs, and the vague suggestion that owning fewer things makes you a better person. And there is some truth to that. Minimalism did become a style. It became marketable. It became aspirational. It became something people could buy their way into, which is admittedly strange for a movement about having less. But like most simple explanations, it only captures part of what is happening. Because for a lot of millennials, minimalism is not just about how a room looks, it is about how life feels. And modern life often feels like too much. Force 1: overstimulation. Millennials live inside constant input, notifications, messages, emails, group chats, tabs, feeds, recommendations, reminders, updates, ads, opinions, breaking news that keeps breaking. The day is full of small demands on attention. None of them are necessarily catastrophic, but collectively they create a kind of mental noise that is always running in the background. So a visually simple environment starts to feel restorative. A clean table is not just a clean table, it is one less surface asking to be processed. An empty corner is not empty in a negative way, it is quiet. A closet with fewer clothes means fewer decisions. A desk with fewer objects means fewer distractions. A room with less clutter gives the mind fewer things to track. That matters because the rest of life is so loud. The phone is loud. Work is loud. The internet is loud. Even leisure is loud. So minimalism becomes appealing because it offers contrast. A small area of life that does not refresh, update, notify, or ask to be clicked. And in that sense, blank space is not emptiness. It is relief. Force 2: economic constraint disguised as taste. Some millennial minimalism is philosophical, some of it is aesthetic, and some of it is simply math. Smaller apartments, higher rents, less storage, delayed homeownership, more roommates, more moves, less permanence. When you move every year or two, owning less is practical. When your apartment barely has closet space, owning less is necessary. When rent takes up a large part of your income, simple living can become the elegant version of not being able to buy much in the first place. This does not mean the preference is fake. It means the preference formed inside real constraints. A large house can hide clutter. A small apartment cannot. A homeowner can accumulate furniture over decades. A renter has to think about whether the couch will fit through the next doorway. A generation with less stable access to space naturally becomes more selective about what enters that space. And this is where minimalism becomes emotionally useful, because having less can feel intentional. A clean apartment with fewer objects can feel like a choice, even when the deeper reason is that there is not enough room, money, or stability to accumulate more. It turns constraint into style. It says, this is not lack, this is clarity. And sometimes that reframing matters. Minimalism gives that smaller life a sense of design. Force 3: control in an unstable world. There's also something deeply practical about simplifying what can actually be simplified. Millennials cannot control housing prices. They cannot control the job market. They cannot control inflation, interest rates, healthcare costs, layoffs, or whether the algorithm decides to ruin their attention span today. A lot of the major forces shaping their lives are too large to manage directly, but they can control a drawer, a shelf, a closet, a morning routine, a workspace, and that small control can feel disproportionately important because when the larger systems feel chaotic, the immediate environment becomes a place to recover some agency. Maybe the world is unstable, but this room can be calm. Maybe the career path is unclear, but this desk can be organized. Maybe the future feels uncertain, but this cabinet can make sense. Minimalism becomes a way of creating order at a scale the individual can actually reach. And that is not trivial. When life feels unmanageable, managing one small corner of it can feel like proof that order is still possible. Not everywhere, not completely, but here. This part can be simplified. This part can be made quiet. This part can be under control. Force 4. Rejection of cluttered consumerism. Millennials also inherited the leftovers of a very cluttered consumer culture. Big box stores, mall culture, fast fashion, plastic everything, rooms full of objects, garages full of bins, closets full of clothes, advertising that promised identity through accumulation. Buy this and become more successful. Buy this and become more attractive. Buy this and become more adult. Buy this and become the kind of person who has their life together. And then millennials came of age during financial crisis, climate anxiety, student debt, and a growing suspicion that more stuff was not delivering the life it promised. The old consumer dream started to feel hollow. More possessions did not necessarily mean more security. More options did not necessarily mean more happiness. More products did not necessarily make adulthood feel more complete. So minimalism became, for some millennials, a quiet rejection of accumulation as proof of success, not because they hate objects, but because they are suspicious of being sold another version of fulfillment. They watch the promise of more become exhausting. More clothes, more gadgets, more upgrades, more subscriptions, more things to maintain. And at some point, less started to look not deprived, but sane. Minimalism offered a different story. Maybe adulthood does not have to mean filling every room. Maybe success does not have to be measured by how much can be stored, displayed, upgraded, and replaced. Maybe wanting less is not failure. Maybe it is refusal. Force 5. Burnout and decision fatigue. This connects directly to burnout and overthinking. When people are tired, every extra thing becomes a decision. What to wear, what to clean, what to move, what to keep, what to donate, what to replace, what to repair, what to organize. Each object may be small, but each one adds a little maintenance to the day. A crowded closet creates choices. A crowded counter creates tasks. A crowded schedule creates friction. And when mental energy is already low, that friction matters. Minimalism reduces the number of things that have to be decided. A capsule wardrobe means fewer choices in the morning. A simple desk means fewer distractions during work. A simplified routine means fewer chances to lose momentum. A cleaner room means fewer reminders of unfinished tasks. This is why minimalism can feel so appealing to burnt out people. It promises fewer decisions, not a perfect life, not a solved life, just fewer tiny points of resistance. Because when the mind is already carrying too much, less becomes more than an aesthetic. It becomes a strategy for survival. And this is where the deeper pattern comes into focus. Millennial minimalism is not only about having less, it is about wanting life to feel less demanding, less visual noise, less maintenance, less debt, less comparison, less pressure to perform success through possessions, less of the constant sense that every part of life needs to be optimized, upgraded, and displayed. Minimalism appeals because it offers the fantasy of manageability, a life with clean edges, a life where every object has a place, a life where the room does not immediately remind you of everything you have not finished. And of course, even minimalism can become its own pressure. The perfect uncluttered home, the perfect neutral wardrobe, the perfect, clean routine, the perfect version of simplicity that still somehow requires buying new containers, new furniture, and a different kind of expensive candle. Even simplicity can become something to optimize. And when that happens, minimalism starts recreating the exact problem it was supposed to solve. But at its best, the appeal is not about looking tasteful. It is about creating enough quiet to hear yourself think. Because the modern world is very good at adding things: more input, more options, more tasks, more noise, more reasons to feel behind. And millennials have spent much of adulthood trying to function inside that excess. So when they clear a shelf, simplify a room, delete an app, donate a bag of clothes, or choose not to buy another thing they do not need, it can feel like a small act of resistance. Not dramatic, not revolutionary, but real. A way of saying, this is one place where more does not win. Millennials did not love minimalism because they stopped wanting things. They loved it because life started to feel like too much. And in a world that constantly adds more, choosing less can feel like one of the few forms of control still available.